Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive deep. Today, we're tackling some serious wisdom from, you guessed it, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the king of self-reliance.
Though we're not going straight to the source, it seems.
Right.
Looks like we've got excerpts from a book by Ikuchi.
Okay.
And clearly, this guy thinks Emerson's ideas are just as powerful today as they were back in the 1800s.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about Emerson, right? His philosophy just seems to, transcend time and cultures.
Mm-hmm.
This book, from what I've gathered, is all about taking his ideas and making them work for us now.
Yeah.
Helping us break free from all those limitations we put on ourselves and really live authentically. And you know what? It's not just everyday folks like us who've been inspired by Emerson.
Oh, absolutely not.
The book mentions some pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah, it does, like Fukuzawa Ikuchi.
Oh, wow, yeah.
This guy was a major force in modernizing Japan.
Huge.
And he saw a really strong connection between Emerson's self-reliance, that core idea, and his own push for independence and self-respect. Wow.
Really using those principles to, reshape Japanese society.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you've got, President Obama, right?
Oh, yeah. Drawn to Emerson, I think, because of that spirit of reform, that challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
I mean, even Obama's message of hope and progress, if you think about it.
Totally.
It kind of echoes that same Emersonian call for change.
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting to see how this one philosophy can resonate with such different people.
What I find fascinating is that, despite coming from completely different backgrounds, they all seem to find common ground in Emerson's belief in the power of the individual.
Yeah.
We can actually shape our own destinies and make a real difference. It doesn't matter what circumstances we're born into.
Absolutely. And that leads us to one of the most powerful ideas in the book, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This whole concept of self-imposed limitations.
Oh, yeah.
The author, he uses this really vivid analogy, talking about it like a prison that we build for ourselves.
Oh, wow. Through our own self-doubt and fear of judgment,
It's a pretty striking image.
It is.
And it really drives home the point that to be truly self-reliant, you got to break free from those chains first.
Right.
The book even quotes this artist, Taro Okamoto, who said, "When you want to live an easy life, you must fight against that self as an enemy. You should never let anyone take over the path of your life."
Wow. That's a powerful statement. So we're often our own worst enemies, holding ourselves back.
I think that's exactly what he's getting at.
Yeah.
And then the author ties that into this concept of a self-access.
That's self-access, okay.
He argues that to really embrace self-reliance, we need to develop this strong inner compass, the self-access. And he compares it to a tree that bends with the wind but doesn't break.
Okay, but isn't that kind of a paradox?
How so?
Well, how can we be both unwavering in our beliefs and also flexible in our approach to life?
It's not about being rigid, not dogmatic.
Got it.
He contrasts this flexible self-access with the way people usually try to become strong. It's like they're trying to be this massive, unyielding tree by just piling on knowledge and skills.
Yeah, that's it.
But he argues that actually makes us more vulnerable, less adaptable to all the curveballs life throws our way.
So it's more about having that core set of values, right? That strong sense of self.
Right.
But also being open to new experiences and willing to, adapt and change as we grow.
Exactly. It's finding that balance between inner strength and outer flexibility. That's how we navigate this crazy world without compromising who we are at our core.
That makes sense. Now, the book also dives into the importance of intuition,
which Emerson called the voice of the soul.
Yes. The author makes this really interesting distinction between that true inner voice and what he calls the voice of ego.
Which is often driven by, pressure from the outside world or just wanting everyone to like us.
Well, for sure.
He gives this really practical example, like trying to be a good partner based on what society tells you versus really understanding your partner's needs and desires, which is more of an intuitive approach, I think.
So it's about being able to tell the difference between what we think we should be doing and what actually feels right deep down.
Yeah, and he really stresses that if you ignore that inner voice, that intuition, you end up living a life that feels empty and unfulfilling, just going through the motions, living someone else's script instead of writing your own.
Totally. And that brings us to another key theme in the book, which is finding your right work.
Yeah.
The author argues that if you're stuck in a job that doesn't feel right, it really messes with your personal growth and happiness.
And he brings it back to Emerson by saying that finding your right work means contributing to your community, forgetting about all those societal expectations about status and wealth,
Right.
and really embracing self-reliance in how you approach your work.
It's so cool how Emerson, like, challenged all those traditional ideas about success.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't about climbing the ladder or making tons of money for him. It was about finding work that had meaning, work that you were passionate about.
Totally. He thought true fulfillment came from aligning your work with your values and using your talents to actually make a positive impact. And the book really stresses that this is just as important now as it was back then.
Absolutely. And it seems like that idea of self-reliance extends to leadership, too.
Oh, for sure.
The author talks about leaders like Steve Jobs, who really embodied this principle by creating environments where people could excel.
Like Jobs was famous for saying,
Oh, yeah.
if you just set up the table properly, people will do jobs exceeding their limitations.
Hmm.
He understood that leadership isn't about micromanaging or like controlling every little thing.
Right.
It's about building trust and giving people the freedom to reach their full potential, you know?
Yeah, so it's more about creating the right conditions for people to thrive and contribute their unique talents.
Exactly. And the author points out that this kind of leadership takes a lot of self-confidence, not just in yourself, but in the people around you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what about when things get tough? What happens when we face those inevitable challenges and setbacks?
Well, the author introduces this idea of growth pangs.
Growth pangs.
Yeah, like he describes them as a necessary part of growing as a person. And he uses this analogy of a crab molting its shell.
Okay.
It's uncomfortable, even painful, but it's how the crab grows and evolves.
So those difficult moments, they're actually opportunities for growth and transformation.
Exactly. And the author even shares this quote from Emerson. It is not the absence of failure, but the ability to rise after each failure that defines true glory.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning from it and using it to move forward.
And again, this brings us back to self-reliance, that belief in our ability to overcome obstacles, to pick ourselves up and keep going, even when things are hard.
Now, the author shifts gears a bit and starts talking about self-reliance in the context of relationships.
Oh, interesting.
He even shares a personal story about overcoming some tough times in his own life and how that actually helped him connect with others on a deeper level.
It's amazing how facing our own struggles can make us more understanding and compassionate towards others, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like we can see their struggles through a different lens, one that's been shaped by our own experiences.
Absolutely. And he connects this back to Emerson's belief that being open and vulnerable with others encourages them to do the same.
Yeah.
Which creates a foundation for more authentic and meaningful relationships.
That's a beautiful idea. So it's about letting go of that need to always appear perfect and allowing ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, flaws and all.
And that vulnerability, he thinks, can actually be the key to deeper connection.
I love that. It leads perfectly into Emerson's ideas about true friendship, which the author explores in depth.
Emerson believed that true friends aren't the ones who always agree with us or tell us what we want to hear.
Right.
They're the ones who challenge us to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
He even called a true friend a beautiful enemy.
I know, right? Sounds a bit contradictory.
It does. What did he mean by that?
I think he was trying to emphasize that true friends are the ones who aren't afraid to be honest with us.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard to hear, they hold up a mirror to our flaws and imperfections, and that's what helps us grow.
It's like having friends who are willing to call us out on our BS, in a loving way, of course.
Yeah.
Those are the relationships that really push us to evolve.
I agree. And the author contrasts this with the more common tendency to surround ourselves with people who just reinforce our existing beliefs.
Yeah, like an echo chamber.
Which can feel good in the moment, but ultimately limits our growth and prevents us from really understanding different perspectives.
That's so true.
Wow.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation so far. I'm already feeling inspired to take a closer look at some of my own relationships and how I approach challenges.
It's incredible how Emerson's ideas, written so long ago, can still feel so relevant and applicable to our lives today.
And this book does such a great job of bringing those ideas to life, weaving them into the author's own experiences, and giving us practical insights that we can all use on our own journeys.
Definitely.
This is great. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what else we uncover.
Me too.
So we just explored how important genuine friendships are to really push us to grow. But the book doesn't stop there. It goes on to talk about the transformative power of self-belief.
And the way the author approaches it is really interesting. He doesn't shy away from sharing his own struggles with self-confidence, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of refreshing to hear, honestly. I mean, even the guy writing a book about self-reliance had to work on believing in himself. So what was his, like, turning point?
Well, he realized that true self-belief, it often starts without, like, concrete reasons. So instead of waiting for those accomplishments to, validate him, he started by noticing how much faith other people had in his potential.
Oh, that's interesting. So, like, it's not about waiting to earn self-belief through achievements.
Exactly. It's more about tapping into that inner confidence, that intuition, even when you don't have all the answers. Embracing the power of positive thinking.
I like that. And, speaking of trusting our gut, the book delves into a concept that gets tossed around a lot, but is often misunderstood. Independence.
Yeah, and he makes a really important distinction there. True independence isn't about rebelling against authority or societal norms just for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about cultivating that strong inner compass,
Mm-hmm.
having that sense of self that lets you make choices that align with your values, regardless of external pressures.
So it's not about isolating yourself from society or rejecting everything it stands for. It's more about figuring out what truly resonates with you and having the courage to follow your own path, even if it's different from the norm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He uses this great analogy talking about how society often pushes us to focus on outward appearances.
Mhm.
Like we decorate our outer shells with status symbols, accomplishments, material possessions. But true independence, according to Emerson and the author, it lies in cultivating your inner world. Nurturing qualities like integrity, kindness, that genuine desire to contribute to something bigger than yourself.
It's about shifting that focus from external validation to internal fulfillment, finding meaning from within rather than seeking it from other people.
He quotes Fukuzawa Ikuchi again, who warned, "Those without a spirit of independence will always rely on others. Those who rely on others will always fear them, and those who fear others will always flatter them."
Pretty powerful, right? It shows the dangers of relying too much on what other people think.
That's intense. And it seems like there's this strong connection between independence and this idea of spiritual growth that he explores.
Yeah, for sure. He suggests that real spiritual growth requires both introspection, like that deep dive into your inner world, and a willingness to engage with the world around you. So it's not about retreating from life, but finding that balance between inner reflection and active participation. So it's about nurturing both our inner landscape and our outer engagement with the world. And speaking of finding balance, the book emphasizes finding joy in everyday life, even when things are tough.
He offers some practical advice on that too, like focusing on simple pleasures, connecting with nature, cultivating gratitude. These practices can help tap into a deeper sense of peace and contentment, even when you're facing difficulties.
It reminds me of that Emerson quote, "The invariable mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common."
Ah, I like that one.
It's about changing your perspective, choosing to see the beauty and wonder in the everyday instead of focusing on the negative.
Yeah, he's right on the money. And the author agrees, arguing that by intentionally choosing to see the good, to appreciate those small things, we can actually transform our whole experience of life.
But how do we hold on to that sense of wonder and joy when life inevitably throws us those curveballs? When we're dealing with setbacks and hardships, it's easy to lose sight of the positive.
That's where building a resilient mindset comes in. He argues that when you hit those rough patches, you should try to see them as opportunities for growth and learning, not as defeats.
Oh, interesting. He uses the analogy of a ship navigating a storm, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not about avoiding the storm, but about having the skills and courage to steer through it and come out stronger on the other side.
I like that. So it's about acknowledging our limitations, but using them as fuel to learn and grow.
Right. And just as important as self-awareness is having healthy ways to cope.
Okay.
Whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or connecting with people you love, finding ways to manage stress and stay emotionally balanced is key to weathering those storms.
So it seems like this whole philosophy of self-reliance isn't just about outward success or, money. It's about developing a mindset that helps us thrive in all parts of life, even the tough ones.
It's about cultivating that inner strength and wisdom to face whatever comes your way with courage, grace, and a deep sense of purpose.
This conversation has been so eye-opening. It's really cool to see how the author brings his own experiences into this exploration of Emerson's ideas.
It's that personal touch that makes it so engaging, He's not just talking about philosophy in the abstract. He's showing us how these ideas actually work in real life.
It makes it feel more relatable and down to earth, Like this whole self-reliance thing isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing those imperfections and striving to be our best selves.
It's a journey we're all on, with all its ups and downs. But embracing these principles of self-reliance can help us navigate it with more purpose and resilience.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one more concept from the book that I think is worth diving into. The author dedicates a whole section to the idea of action.
Oh, yeah. He's a big believer in that.
So it's not just about thinking about these ideas, but actually putting them into practice.
He quotes Emerson directly on this. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone, embracing the unknown, creating your own path.
That sounds, well, exciting, but also a little daunting.
Yeah.
What does that look like in everyday life? Like, how do we actually take action?
He suggests starting small. It could be something as simple as setting a new goal, trying something that scares you a little, or consciously developing a new habit.
Okay, so it's not about making these huge, drastic changes, but taking small, intentional steps that move us in the right direction.
He encourages readers to act boldly and without hesitation, even if you don't know what the outcome will be. The important thing is to move beyond just thinking about it and actually do something.
Because it's in the doing, in the trying, in the inevitable missteps that we really learn and grow.
He even says that taking action, even if it leads to failure, is way more valuable than doing nothing out of fear.
So it's about embracing that learning process, accepting the mistakes are going to happen, and using those experiences to get better.
He challenges readers to see failure not as a defeat, but as a chance to learn. Every setback, every obstacle you overcome, it makes you more resilient and helps you understand yourself better.
This conversation has been so insightful. I'm starting to see how all these ideas, self-reliance, independence, spiritual growth, resilience, action, they're all connected.
They're all pieces of the puzzle,
Exactly.
a holistic approach to personal development.
And it's clear that the author really lives by these ideas, weaving them into his own life and sharing his insights in a way that's both inspiring and easy to understand.
It's a good reminder that we all have the potential to create fulfilling, meaningful lives. And for those who want to explore these ideas even further, checking out Emerson's original work, especially his essay, Self-Reliance, would be a great next step.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in our Emerson deep dive today. I mean, from self-belief to taking action, it's been pretty inspiring. But, I'm always curious about the practical side of things. Like, how do we actually live out these principles?
Yeah, the book offers some great takeaways on that front. One that really stuck with me was the focus on building those genuine, meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Sounds simple enough, right? But in our world today, with everything moving so fast and all this online interaction, it's easy to lose sight of real connection.
Oh, absolutely. It's like we're drowning in superficial interactions, especially online. Hundreds of friends on social media. But, like, how many of those are truly meaningful?
The author hits that nail on the head. He argues that we need to be more intentional about cultivating those relationships that really challenge us, the ones that inspire us, support our growth. It's like that beautiful enemy idea we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's about finding those friends who are willing to be honest with us, who push us to think differently and be better versions of ourselves.
Exactly. And he also suggests that we need to be more open to being vulnerable in those relationships.
Okay.
Let our guard down, allow ourselves to be truly seen.
Because that's where the real connection happens, right? In those moments of vulnerability.
That's what he believes. And through those authentic connections, we experience that deep joy and fulfillment that Emerson saw as so essential for a meaningful life. Another takeaway that really resonated with me was this idea of embracing failure.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
It is, isn't it?
We're kind of programmed to fear failure, to see it as this sign of weakness.
Yeah, we're taught to avoid it at all costs. But the author flips that whole perspective on its head.
How so?
He reminds us that failure is just part of life. Especially when we're pushing ourselves, trying new things, going after our dreams. He wants us to reframe how we see failure altogether.
Okay, I'm listening.
Instead of this setback, this negative thing, it becomes a valuable learning experience.
So it's not about never failing, but about learning how to deal with it when it happens.
Right. He argues that it's through those mistakes, those missteps, that we actually learn the most valuable lessons. We develop that resilience we need to succeed in the long run.
There's that Emerson quote the author includes, "A great man is always willing to be little."
Oh, I like that.
It's a good reminder that growth requires humility. Admitting when we're wrong and learning from it, even when things don't go as planned.
And I think that ties in beautifully with the idea of self-compassion, which he also talks about.
Something we often forget about, right?
It's so easy to be hard on ourselves, beat ourselves up over mistakes.
Way too easy.
But he suggests that we should treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a good friend.
Yeah.
He argues that all that self-criticism, it actually creates this negative cycle that can hold us back from growing. But self-compassion, on the other hand, lets us see our flaws without judgment.
Yeah.
We can learn from our mistakes and move forward with more self-awareness and resilience.
So it's about creating a more supportive inner environment,
Yeah.
accepting that we're all works in progress.
Absolutely. And he even gives some practical tips for cultivating self-reliance in our daily routines, like setting aside time each day for introspection, connecting with that inner voice, and getting clear on our values.
That's a good one. It's so easy to lose sight of what truly matters amidst all the chaos.
Right. Taking that time to pause and reflect can make a world of difference. He also encourages us to take responsibility for our own happiness.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means that instead of looking for validation or fulfillment from outside sources, we need to actively seek out experiences that bring us joy, things that align with what we believe in.
So we become the creators of our own happiness instead of waiting for it to magically appear.
Exactly. And finally, he emphasizes the importance of living in alignment with our values. Making choices that reflect our true selves, even when it's hard or unpopular.
Yeah, it's about staying true to ourselves no matter what. Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. This book does a fantastic job of taking Emerson's wisdom and making it relevant for our lives today.
It really is remarkable how these ideas, written so long ago, still speak to us. I mean, this emphasis on self-reliance, intuition, action, personal growth, it taps into something deep within us, something that transcends time and circumstance.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have the power to create lives that are both fulfilling and meaningful. And for anyone who wants to go even deeper, I think exploring Emerson's original works, especially Self-Reliance, would be a fantastic next step.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this journey into Emerson's world. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration for your own path of self-discovery and growth.